Hey, folks! Oh my god! Welcome back to combo class. We're now at the end of grade -2. Now, while I go on a few last grade -2 adventures and set up my classroom for grade -3, over the next few weeks I'll be crafting this episode, a sort of documentary about the process of making this grade. Now, this episode may be a bit of a jumble, so if there's any sections that you get bored by, just skip ahead to the timestamp of the next chapter. There's a lot of different things I want to pack into this episode, including lots of interesting unreleased footage, such as all of the injuries I've gotten while filming this grade, some crazy animals and plants that I've encountered, some personal secrets I'd like to share with you, and more. These first few sections will mostly be voiceover Domotro narrating over some rare clips that I filmed during this grade. Alright, the audio in this part is so windy that I'm going to cut to a voiceover a little early. A lot of this episode, especially in the first half of it, will be me doing a voiceover on top of some clips I've already filmed, although almost all of these clips I've never put in a video before, and there's a lot of things I want to fit into this episode, so let's just jump in. Now, a lot of people expect that I will hurt myself while filming these videos due to, all of the broken glass and giant fires and stuff. And I did get a couple injuries this grade, although not the sort that most people expected. So let's look through a list of all the times that I hurt or almost hurt myself during this grade. When I do dangerous looking things in my videos, such as lighting large fires, those are actually controlled scenes that have less of a chance of hurting me than small things that I don't pay enough attention to. Now, I like to do live streams on my other Domotro channel, and occasionally it will be nighttime and I'll use some small flames to brighten the scene. Sometimes it's for a particular activity, like making jack-o'-lanterns. Other times, I'll just use some candles to brighten the darkness while I discuss random things. One of these times, though, I leaned a bit too close to one of those candles. I'm going to try and light above the wick, and sometimes the smoke lets it travel back. Do you see that? I was way above the wick when it lit. Anyway, we'll add another one or two. Like this long wick one. I don't know why the wick's so long. This grape, I guess we'll eat this for ceremonial fruit while I show you the next one. And you can, get your description of it in your head before I describe it. Don't censor this, YouTube. This is an orange. Anyway, this is an orange, but oh! Ow! Ow! I burnt my hand a bit. Let me get the hose on that. I had successfully swatted out the fire on my jacket, but it left some burnt lab coat residue on my hand. Oh, shoot, guys. I'm going to have to end the stream and make sure my hand's okay. I'll come back with another stream soon. Overall, this gave my hand a decent burn, which resulted in this blister, and also resulted in the hole you can see appear in my lab coat partway through the grade. That was the worst I've ever hurt myself with fire, but there was one other time this grade when I almost got a really bad injury. I was setting up a scene in the classroom, and it felt like I had a sharp little pebble in my shoe that I couldn't shake to the side. And when I inspected my shoe closer, I saw that I was actually feeling the tip of a nail that had pierced through my shoe at an angle, just right so that I could feel the tip of it without it breaking my skin. But if my shoes didn't have such thick soles, or it hadn't gone at that angle, this rusty nail could have pierced right into my foot, maybe given me tetanus or something. So I decided to be a lot more careful watching where I step in the combo classroom. And there are plenty of other mini injuries I've gotten around the classroom from things like clocks or tree branches falling on me. Whoa, it just fell out of a tree and hit me. Like, bro, look, it scratched me. But luckily, the classroom has not given me any major injuries. Now, although no big injury sculpted the course of this grade, the recovery from a previous injury did play a role. Some of you may remember that while I was making grade -1 of combo class, I had to get 2 major hip surgeries, leaving me trapped at home a lot of the time and certainly unable to take cool walks in nature like I'm doing right now, unable to take our class on what I call field trips. But now, throughout grade -2 and onward, I've had much more ability to go visit a lot of the beautiful things I love. Now I can do things like visit magnificently large trees, look at cool views over cliffs, and explore mysterious locations. After grade -1, when I had been going through surgeries and then recovering from them and relearning how to walk, in grade -2, I now had this ability to walk again, and it let me go on more adventures, some of which were to places I already knew and loved, like my local marina area where I can walk over to see some cool wildlife. Many of these adventures weren't documented, but I did film some of them, and I do like to include natural scenes like this in the background of many of my videos, partially because nature is beautiful and full of unpredictable surprises, and partially because it's like a little snapshot of what nature looks like in particular little parts of the planet at a particular time in history. I've also now regained the ability to try to take journeys to places I've never been before. In this grade, I got the opportunity to take a trip to the Hawaiian island Kauai, and that was full of natural beauty, including many cool animals, which brings me to our next part. Now, what about interesting animals that I've encountered during this grade? On my trip to Hawaii, I encountered a bunch of cool animals, most notably a lot of different types of bird. And to be more specific, the most common type of bird was chickens. There were a ton of wild chickens of all shapes and sizes wandering around practically any area I went to. You folks remember the classroom chicken? Well, now that I can travel around more, I can hang around with real chickens. These chickens were really friendly and nice too. Now, moving a little closer to my home, at my local marina area, there are also many cool birds that I like to observe, not only looking at the single individual birds, but also the behaviors they can have as a whole flock. And now to move even closer to my home, what about the animals that come right within my yard and classroom? To begin discussing classroom animals, I need to first mention my cats. When I started making Combo Class, I had 2 cats, Sage and Dandelion. Some of you may be extra familiar with Dandelion because he makes more appearances on camera because he's always following me around trying to get his belly rubbed. Then a stray cat began visiting my yard, and I suspect he may be related to them, although that's a long story. And this cat went from being super shy to becoming a love monster who has now officially been adopted, and I now have 3 cats. This new cat, Sassafras, is super smart, super nice, gets along with the other cats, and I like to say, has gone from rags to riches. So grade -3 will contain 3 combo classroom cats, and here's some clips of them interacting with our next subject, squirrels. Throughout grade -2, I started getting more and more visits from a group of squirrels that lives nearby somewhere on my block. And at first I just observed them running around and playing and being silly, but at one point I did start feeding them nuts. Now, you aren't supposed to feed wild animals. It's bad for them in general. But I did make a little exception in this case, partially because these squirrels aren't fully wild. They live here on the city streets, and a lot of their diet already consists of fruit from fruit trees and possibly even trash from neighbors. So I did decide to give them some healthy food from time to time, mostly walnuts, which are a healthy type of nut for them, and opening the shell is even good for their teeth. And I did try to mix in some other fruits and vegetables that I read could be good for their diet. At first, I did this feeding from a distance because I was a little scared of them biting me or something, and then I tried it out wearing a glove. All right, you want a nut? You can eat it out of my hand. We're using a safety glove to start. Oh yeah, that's a good nut. And eventually I felt comfortable enough feeding them right out of my bare hands. All right, I'm gonna try and feed this guy right out of my hand. I think he's gentle enough. I don't think he'll bite. There you go. And it turns out they're surprisingly gentle. Even when they've grabbed the nuts directly from my hands, they've never bitten me and it's barely scratched me. They're not trying to hurt you. So I did have some fun throughout this grade, feeding some squirrels. Now, I did cut back on how many nuts I give them, and now only do it occasionally, partially because one of my neighbors turns out to be giving them walnuts herself, and they have more than enough nuts, it appears. They don't even eat them all. They bury a bunch in the yard for later. And partially because I messed up one time. I saw a massive bag of walnuts on sale, comically large, and decided to buy it. But I left it outside, and instead of being a long supply of treats, they must have just had a crazy feast. I was trying to feed that squirrel, and I was wondering where that massive bag of nuts I bought was. Well, I found the shreds of it, and you want to see some clues? I got some freaking clues for you. The squirrels ate and or buried every single nut in the bag. And in general, I don't want to ruin their ability to teach their children how to forage for food, so now I only give them walnuts occasionally, but I still get plenty of nice visits from them. While I'm talking about animals, I should also mention the slender salamanders. In the grade -1 finale, when my classroom was partially flooded due to some rainfall, I noticed that these little creatures, slender salamanders, unexpectedly showed up. And so I should note, in this grade, after one time when it rained, I did see these critters near my classroom in my yard again. That's so cool. There's a small one, and there is the biggest one I've seen yet. There are also some other types of animal that visit my yard and classroom from time to time. For example, opossums, which are actually super chill. Raccoons, which are okay but can be a bit aggressive at times. And skunks, which luckily are rarer, and some of these types of creature we will see return later in this episode. But for now, let's move on from animals. Now, if we're going to talk about animals, we might as well talk about some interesting plants as well. First, I should note that near my classroom, in this garden that I share with a few families, there are a number of delicious fruits that grow at different times. In addition to these delicious fruits in the front yard, there are also a number of cool plants right next to and within my combo classroom. For example, in one corner near the classroom is a loquat tree that grows edible fruits. Check it out, down the corner from the combo classroom, we got loquats. In between this loquat tree and my classroom is sort of a corridor of bamboo, which does need to be cut back occasionally so it doesn't damage the structure of the house, but the bamboo that's currently there, I kept an eye on throughout this grade and noticed that it grows quite fast. There was one stalk right next to the classroom that I never remember being so massive, but all of a sudden I realized it was taller than the house. And as I continued watching it throughout the grade, I saw it get even taller and saw some cool leaves appear on top. Then there's the plants within the combo classroom. In the back of the classroom, for much of this grade, there was a wooden planter bin where I'd put a bunch of soil from my compost bin, and I'd intended on planting something or another there, but never had gotten around to it. Still, an experiment ended up growing. I had set down some old potatoes when I was in the middle of filming part of a snack break episode that never ended up becoming a full episode about potatoes. And after I forgot about them there and it rained on the potatoes, they took root and started growing some interesting miniature potatoes attached to themselves. I left some potatoes out here which not only grew these weird sprouts, but also seemed to have grown much more than that, because when I was digging through this soil, I found new miniature potatoes that must have grown, and we can see that in process right here. This is an old rotten potato that I'd left here, growing new potatoes off it in a mutated looking way. How cool is that? In addition to growing these little mutant potatoes, it also grew a large green part, and maybe we'll return to these potato growing experiments in another grade. Unfortunately, this grade, that planter ended up collapsing and breaking, but before it broke, I did find another unexpected plant inside it. I found this next to my potato plant in this planter bin, and I was like, is that a small cherry? And looking closely, it looks like this small type of plum that I've eaten before. And I wondered, where did that come from? Is it one of these trees in the combo classroom? Are these fruit trees all along that just haven't been bearing fruit for some reason? And I saw one up on the tree here. Do you see it? It's right over there. There's one growing in the tree. It's blending in. It's right in the middle there. Maybe these are fruit trees all along, and they just haven't been making fruit for some reason. Yep, it turns out that some of the trees that have been hanging over the combo classroom the whole time have been plum trees all along. They're not very good at creating fruit for some reason, but after spotting one in that planter bin, I spent some time looking upward and did spot a few plums hiding among the branches. And with some help from a tool, I did even manage to taste a couple. There were also a bunch of neat plants I saw while off on adventures, like these coconut trees, which I already incorporated into a snack break episode, and this banana tree, which I unfortunately saw after I filmed a snack break about bananas this grade, but that's probably enough about plants for now. Alright, now let's move on to the next part. During my time making Combo Class so far, I've learned a lot of things about filmmaking and other topics, and in my opinion at least, I've gotten better at making videos, and part of that relates to trying new experiments and seeing what does or doesn't work as well. So let me take a moment to look at some ways in which grade -2 was a different experiment than grade -1. In addition to having different backdrops of nature and different locations, I also tried some other experiments during this grade. For example, experimenting with different ways to convey information to people, whether it's a visual experiment or some anecdote from my past that adds an element of humanity or philosophy behind a topic, as well as experiments with how long I would let myself make an episode, making some that were over an hour for the first time in this grade, and even experimenting with which topics I chose to make videos about. Like, in addition to more typical number theory and an occasional snack break, I also tried topics like game theory during this grade, because Combo Class was and is a big experiment. Now, one big difference between this grade's experiment and the experiment of grade -1 is that when this grade began, I knew people would be watching. When I created grade -1, it wasn't the first YouTube channel I've made. I've made many videos in the past that just didn't have many people watch them. And when grade -2 hit, not only did I find that I still had motivation to continue making this project, but I also found that other people were watching it and finding it interesting. And it's a strange, different sort of challenge to make a form of art or entertainment or education that you don't know if anyone's gonna see and you're just making for your personal pride, compared to one where you know this is how you're gonna come across to the world. This is gonna be something with a lot of eyes on it. And it's awesome to have so many people watching something that you created, but it's also a bit nerve-wracking. And to get past any perfectionism that I might feel about my projects, I decided I'm just gonna make 36 more main episodes that I'm proud of on this channel for this grade in about a year, although it did take a little longer than a year for this grade because some episodes became their own pretty long sub-experiments. And I decided that I'll put a bunch of my other random ideas on a side channel called Domotro from Combo Class. And since that bonus content includes all of the little vertical shorts I've made, some of which got hugely popular, funny enough, that bonus channel of mine has 4 or 5 times as many subscribers as this channel now, but who cares? They're both different channels that I have that I can express different aspects of my educational art through. Anyway, by having this channel for my larger video projects and my other channel for my more casual videos, I'm usually able to overcome my perfectionism enough to just put out projects when I think they're done enough. And I should thank all of you who leave nice and encouraging comments for helping me overcome that perfectionism. I should also note that outside of videos, there are other types of project I spend my time working on, ranging from games to music to various sorts of writings, and perhaps in grade -3, I'll begin overcoming my perfectionism with some of those projects and actually start releasing some of them. Now, like last grade's finale, I've decided that this in-between period where I'm deconstructing one grade and setting up for the next is a good time to push all of the furniture-like things over a bit more to the edges and make room so I have space to camp out here for a few nights. Well, I set up this tent in the combo classroom to go camping for a little bit. I slept out here last night and it was quite nice, and I'm gonna spend a few more nights out here seeing what sorts of wildlife I end up experiencing. And if I'm camping, I might as well make a little campfire. I decided to take that old broken potato planter and chop it down into firewood, and mixed with some old logs I still had, that was enough to start a little campfire and cook some food on it. We live in a world where, as time goes on, more and more videos that other people make incorporate things like computer graphics or even help from artificial intelligence, but I prefer to fill my videos with natural forces, like plants or fire or things interacting with gravity in unpredictable ways. Incorporating these aspects into my videos and my life is not only fun for me, but also creates a bunch of meta experiments going on, ranging from ones you could call physics, like how a clock might fall or burn, to ones that are more philosophical, like how a mad scientist might evolve over several years in his combo classroom. Oh, the stick's on fire. I'll take that as a sign that it's done. And we got our campfire strawberry. And that's probably good for today's meal and little campfire. And I'll probably do a few more campfire cooking experiments over the next few days that I'm camping out here. Well, I did cook some more food on the campfire. Here's some clips of that. And for the past few nights, I've enjoyed sleeping in this tent. This is going to be the 4th night that I'm going to sleep out here just for fun, because I'm enjoying the experiment. And I have been getting some company from the animals around here as well, including my cats, all of which found the tent very interesting. And Sage and Dandelion even like to come inside the tent. Sage even slept in there with me some of the nights. I also got a visit from this opossum. And this pair of very curious raccoons. And at this point, we're mostly caught up with the older flashbacks, so this episode will now transition to being closer to present tense. Anyway, now that I'm out here camping with you folks, I figure it's a good time to tell you a little secret. Out of the many personal problems that I deal with in between the scenes of my life that you see, there is one that has been particularly notable about the past year, and that is related to alcohol, which I used to have a very serious problem with. And something that I've never told either of my channels here is that my period of alcoholism a few years ago ended with me almost dying from a seizure from withdrawals. And after that, I was sober for quite some time, about 2 years, including all of grade -1 of combo class. But during grade -2, I foolishly let myself begin drinking again for portions of it. and there were portions where it became a serious problem in my life again. Not nearly as bad as it had been the last time, but still messing with my mood, my personal relationships, and my productivity. And I'm sorry to any of you if it did affect my productivity of releasing my episodes and various content, even though I am very proud of what I managed to make in between that. I'll probably make a bonus video on my other Domotro channel sometime explaining more details about that situation, but for now I'll just say I was able to break free from that, and it's been more than a month since I've drank now, and I intend on keeping that up and trying to have a healthy and productive grade -3. Now that I'm getting my mind back in better shape, it's also time to get my body back in better shape. There's a few resets on me that it's about time to do now that this grade's ending, and one of them may take throughout next grade for me to sort of reset, which is I've gained a bit of weight over the past year or so, and while there's nothing inherently bad with having a bit of a gut, I do want to get into great shape in grade -3. It's also time to get some of this hair out of the way. That is a quicker reset we can do, and the end of a sort of experiment. The last time I cut my hair or beard was when I cut it myself for last grade's finale, and then over the next week a few times trimmed another couple pieces off in the mirror myself. But this self-given haircut, I decided to keep all of grade -2 and see how long it got as a personal experiment. I thought this grade was just going to be a year, but it ended up being a bit longer because I got carried away with some episodes that became their whole own sub-experiments. But now, finally, we're at the end of the grade, and it's time that I can cut my hair, cut my beard, and end this experiment of how long do my hair and beard grow in a single grade? Apparently this long. Well, I'm gonna need some sort of blade. Ah, perfect. Well, now after sleeping out here for about a week, it is time to take down the tent and continue deconstructing and then reconstructing this classroom for our cycle to wrap back around. Many things in life work in a cyclical way, from the seasons to other cycles of the sun and the moon to other life cycles that animals and plants experience. Oh, a squirrel! And more. And in combo class, at least so far, the end of the grades tend to be a little more chaotic than the beginning of the grades. And I'm kind of excited to get to a somewhat neater state again before the chaos rebuilds. And now time for the final campfire of the grade to celebrate the retirement of this lab coat, which has done a great job for me this grade, but now is covered in dirt marks, a burn mark, a bunch of ink stains, and when I knew it was almost time to retire it a few weeks ago, I even let my friends draw some shapes all over it. Now I've ordered a new lab coat for grade -3, which will be coming in the mail, and I think that means that we don't need this lab coat anymore, so goodbye. Although I'm not sure exactly what day that's coming. I might actually want to film some bonus videos before that comes. Water. Oh man, what have I done? Why do I keep doing this? Anyway, I suppose I'll put this more burnt than ever lab coat back on for just a few last scenes now. During this grade, although I did all of the writing and acting and even the editing and soundtracking of these episodes, I couldn't have created it without some help from a few folks, so I'd like to do a little section thanking some of the people who helped me craft grade -2. First, I'd like to thank the people who helped me film these episodes, such as my main camera guy Carlo, as well as these other folks. I'd also like to thank my mom, Penny, who helped me with a lot of personal things during this grade, as well as the rest of my family, and yes, that does include the cats. And I'd also like to thank all my friends for always having my back as well. I'd also like to thank some folks who helped me with the combo class community, such as these folks who helped me moderate the combo class Discord channel, where some combo lords gather to chat about things. And I'd like to thank the viewers of mine who help fund my combo class projects by donating on places like Patreon or the YouTube memberships on my Domotro channel. And if you've donated in some other form so your name doesn't appear here, know that it was still very much appreciated. There are also some folks who have sent me items, and thanks a lot to you folks as well. And overall, thank you so much to all of you viewers who are joining me on this combo class journey. And I'd like to especially thank all of my viewers who might be watching this from another planet, or another dimension, or the distant future. But thanks to all you present tense humans also. I love you. And that's about all for grade -2. Until grade -3, if you want to make sure you've caught up on all of this grade's episodes, there is a chronological playlist of all of them on this channel. And if you're ever in the mood for more combo content, remember that my Domotro channel has hours upon hours of shorts, live streams, and assorted bonus videos. And on this channel, I'll see you folks in a week or two for the grade -3 intro.